be right there. Just let me get my earring disconnected from my mask. Good morning, everyone. It's good to be with you this morning. It's good for all of us to be together with the pollen. Whether you are here in person this morning or watching from home, it's good to be with you this morning. It's good for all of us to be together. As we gather this morning, I'd like to share with you some words from Elizabeth Barish Brown. In ancient times, they said, Dayenu. It would have been enough to have been spared after the plagues. It would have been enough to have been freed of slavery. It would have been enough to have had food in the desert. Now we question, when will it be enough again? Dayenu. It would have been enough. It will be enough again. If the story of Passover is told and teaches us how to live in this time, it will be enough. If the stories of our ancestors bring us hope for tomorrow, it will be enough. If we join together in remembering that we all come from people who have survived again and again, it will be enough this year, as it is each and every year. Dayenu, it will be enough that we are together today. Come, let us worship together.
Sing songs of freedom, shout with the slaves who fled and sing songs of freedom. What modern pharaohs live in arrogance grounded, or shall be sent to challenge folly unbounded. Bring out the festal bread and sing songs of freedom, shout with the slaves who fled and sing songs of freedom. Chains still there are to break, their days are not finished. Metal or salt will make it still not diminished. Bring out the festal bread and sing songs of freedom. Shout with the slaves who fled and sing songs of freedom. Still does resentment bind each brother and sister. Still do the plagues affect us red as the river. Shout with the slaves who fled and sing songs of freedom. Lovely our journey, and yet justice is worth it. Dance, Sister Miriam, and help us to birth it. Bring out the festal bread and sing songs of freedom. Shout with the slaves who fled and sing songs of freedom. All people, lift your heads and look to the mountains. Bushes of flames will call us, rocks to rush fountains. Bring out the festal bread and sing songs of freedom. Shout with the slaves who fled and sing songs of freedom.
Thank you, musicians. That was just wonderful. The flaming chalice is the symbol of the Unitarian Universalist tradition, the liberal religious tradition to which this congregation belongs. Will those of you who are here with us in person this morning please stand as you are able for our chalice lighting? If you have a chalice at home, I invite you to light it with me at this time. As we kindle this flame, we recommit ourselves to nurturing the spirits of one another and the common good of the world we share. May the lighting of this flame be accompanying to all who seek liberal religious home. And if you are already standing, I invite you to remain standing for our opening hymn. This morning it is hymn number 1051 in the Teal hymnal, and I think Jean Marie is going to help us out with it. It's called We Are.
Lyrics, as always, will be on the screen, but if you are following along in the Teal hymnal, please note that we are observing all repeat signs. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. We are our grandmother's prayers, and we are our grandfather's dreamings. We are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. We are mothers of courage and fathers of time. We are daughters of dust and the sons of great visions. We are sisters of mercy and brothers of love. We are lovers of life and the builders of nations. We're seekers of truth and keepers of faith. We are makers of peace and the wisdom of ages. We are our grandmother's prayers, and we are our grandfather's dreamings. We are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. We are mothers of courage and fathers of time. We are daughters of dust and the sons of great visions. We're sisters of mercy and brothers of love. We are lovers of life and the builders of nations. We're seekers of truth and keepers of faith. We are makers of peace and the wisdom of ages. We are our grandmother's prayers. Ye are our grandfather's dreamings. We are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are.
I heard scattered applause attempts. Let's actually intend our applause. I think this is actually a good look. I'm going to leave it. Good morning again. My name is Allison, and I am glad to serve as part of your worship team this morning. Whether you are a first-time visitor or a long-time member, I'd like to offer you a special welcome. Here at the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Raleigh, we are intentionally inclusive, liberally religious, and actively serving the common good of our shared world. Whoever you are, and wherever you are on your own spiritual journey, you are welcome here. This morning, one of our lay ministers will be available in the front right corner of the sanctuary after the service to talk with anyone who might be experiencing difficult circumstances in their lives and would like to be able to share with someone. I hope all of you will read through the chalice that you received on email on Friday about everything that is happening here around UUFR, or check out the upcoming events section of our website. Our in-person social hour this morning will take place directly following the service downstairs in Founders Hall. And now I invite you to meet and greet your neighbor.
Let's come back together now. So good to hear y'all talking. That's awesome. This is the time in our service where we share some of the joys and some of the sorrows of our community. We do this because we believe a joy shared is a joy made even greater, and a sorrow shared is made easier to bear. This Tuesday, March 31st, is the International Day of Transgender Visibility. As attacks against our transgender and non-binary siblings increase, may we continue to honor their lives and amplify their voices. And may we recommit ourselves to building a world that celebrates the wholeness of every person, regardless of their gender. Tina Ostergaard shares the news that her husband, David Ostergaard, suffered a stroke on Monday night. Tina is incredibly grateful to share that after a few days in the hospital, he is now home and very much back to his normal, fun, and hilarious self. Both Tina and David are overwhelmed with gratitude for everyone at UUFR who has reached out with love and support. It truly means the world to both of them. Isaac McNeely shares his concern that he is having surgery next week to fix a broken shoulder. May we hold him in our hearts as we hope for a successful surgery and quick healing. Bill and Nancy Devereaux share their joy that they have moved to Magnolia Glen and they are loving it there. And Kirsten Adhikari shares her joy that after her husband Sunil was laid off for the past year, and her also being laid off earlier this month, she has a job interview this Tuesday for a great position. Let us send Kirsten and her husband and their family all kinds of good interview juju and hopeful energy for employment soon. As we hold these shared joys and sorrows in our hearts and reflect on the joys, sorrows, fears, and hopes of our own lives, let's be together in stillness and in silence, opening ourselves to that spirit within us and amidst us, called by many names and known to every human heart, that leads us to a fuller and deeper and richer experience of life. After the silence, we'll sing together hymn 1009, Meditation on Breathing. But for now, let's be together in stillness and in silence.
When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love.
Hey, good morning. My name is Rachel Upadhyaya, and I'm a member of your board of directors. I'll be downstairs at social hour after the worship service if you want to come up and ask any questions you'd like to about the board, talk to me about any concerns you have, or just say hi. So when important decisions call for a vote of all members, the board calls for a congregational meeting in accordance with our fellowship bylaws. There will be such a congregational meeting on Sunday, April 26th, after the second service. By that time, we will have met the lead minister candidate selected by our search team, and the membership will vote on whether to hire to call that individual to this pulpit. All visitors and friends are welcome to attend and observe this meeting, but only members may vote. If you are committed to this community and ready to take on a role of citizen, you may become a member in the office or online. The deadline to join in advance of the new lead minister vote is 3 weeks from today, on April 12th. If you are uncertain about your membership, status and would like to check and make sure that you can vote in the upcoming congregational meeting on April 26th, please find me after the service and I can help you check that. Everything we do at UUFR is only possible because of the generous financial support that so many of us provide. I'd like to take this time to remind members to return the pledge cards for the upcoming fiscal year to UUFR by March 31st, or feel free to pledge online using the link on the front page of our website. That's how I did it. For those of you who have set up an automated giving to UUFR or send in a check by mail every month, I'd like to thank you now for your generosity. If you would like to make a contribution in person this morning, we invite you to bring it forward and place it in one of our offering plates. If you would prefer to have an usher come to where you are, please raise your hand. You may also give using one of the methods that will be available on the screen. Our offering will now be given and gratefully received. Thank you.
This is a poem called Ready by Rabbi Rachel Barenblatt. And it starts with a quote from Exodus. So the people took their dough before it was leavened, their kneading bowls wrapped in their cloaks upon their shoulders. You'll need to travel light. Take what you can carry. A book, a poem, a battered tin cup, your child strapped to your chest, clutching your necklace in one hot, possessive fist. So the dough isn't ready, so your heart isn't ready. You haven't said goodbye to the places where you hid as a child, to the friends who aren't interested in the journey, to the graves you've tended. But if you wait until you feel fully ready, you may never take the leap at all. And infinity is calling you forth out of this birth canal and into the future's wide expanse. Learn to improvise flat cakes without yeast. Learn to read new alphabets. Wear God like a cloak and stride forth with confidence. You don't know where you're going. But you have the words of our sages, the songs of our mothers, the inspiration wrapped in your kneading bowl. Trust that what you carry will sustain you, and take the first step out the door.
When Israel was in Egypt's land, let my people go. Oppressed so hard they could not stand, let my people go. Go down, Moses, way down in Egypt's land. Tell Pharaoh to let my people go. Thus said the Lord, Moses said, let my people go. If not, I'll smite your firstborn dead. Let my people go. Go down, Moses, way down in Egypt's land. Tell old Pharaoh to let my people go.
Thank you, Warren. Good morning. My name is Copulsky. For those of you who don't know me, I am UUFR's Operation and Finance Director, and that compels me to remind you that your pledges are due in just 2 days. And if you haven't pledged by then, I'm going to send someone bigger and meaner than me to your house. This coming week, many Jewish people will be celebrating the holiday of Passover, which is based on a recounting of the biblical story of the Exodus from Egypt. This morning, I'm going to talk about the Exodus story and how it resonates with our lives today. But first, I'm going to start with a few jokes. You're welcome to laugh or moan as the Spirit moves you. Why did the matzah quit his job? Because he couldn't get a raise. Eating a lot of matzah can make you a little bit backed up, which is funny when you realize the theme of the holiday is let my people go. Why did the Israelites wander for 40 years? Because Moses wouldn't ask for directions. A traditional Passover Seder can take hours, including the reading of the 4 questions. So in my house, there was always a 5th question: when do we eat? A traditional Seder asks 4 questions. A UU Seder asks, what is a question? God provided food in the wilderness to feed the Hebrews. It's a good thing that they weren't UUs, because then God would have had to make it gluten-free, ethically sourced, and offered a vegan option. So, those are all the jokes for this morning. So I'm going to read a little bit from the from the Hebrew Bible, and this is starting with Exodus chapter 3, verse 9. And God is speaking to Moses. So now, hear, the cry of the children of Israel has come to me, and I have also seen the oppression with which the Egyptians oppressed them. So now go, for I send you to Pharaoh. Bring my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt. Moses said to God, who am I that I should go to the Pharaoh, that I should bring the children out of Israel out of Egypt? God said, indeed, I will be there with you, and this is the sign for you that I myself have sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you will all serve God by this mountain. And Moses replied to God, I will come to the children of Israel, and I will say to them, the God of your fathers has sent me to you. And they'll say to me, what is his name? What shall I say to them? And God responds to Moses, I will be there. I will be there. However so, I will be there. And God said, thus shall you say to the children of Israel, I will be there, sends me to you. So I'm going to talk about what the book of Exodus has to say, and then I'm going to talk about some ways I think it's relevant to us today. The story of Exodus really begins at the end of the book of Genesis. Joseph was sold into slavery by his brothers, and he's risen to a position of power in Egypt by coming under the favor of the then Pharaoh. There's a severe famine in the land, and Joseph has invited his father and brother and their families to settle in Egypt. And over a number of generations, their descendants have grown to a large population. Eventually, a new Pharaoh comes into power, and he has no memory of what Joseph had done to help the Egyptian people. And the new Pharaoh actually fears the size of the Israelites' population in Egypt, and he enslaves them. And he also orders that all Hebrew male infants are to be killed. But despite this, the Israelis continue to multiply. To save her son, Moses, from death, Moses' mother puts him in a basket, and she floats him down the Nile River. Moses is rescued by Pharaoh's daughter and raised in Pharaoh's household. As an adult, Moses kills an Egyptian overseer when he sees him treating a Hebrew slave unkindly. Moses flees Egypt to Midian, where he settles down and begins a family. One day, Moses sees a bush that burns, but it's not consumed. And God calls to him to return to Egypt and free the Israelites, which is the passage I read just a few minutes ago. And although initially Moses is reluctant to take on this difficult task, eventually Moses agrees to God's wishes. With assistance from his brother Aaron, Moses confronts Pharaoh and asks him to let my people go. But Pharaoh refuses. To help Moses persuade Pharaoh, God sends 10 plagues on Egypt, with the final one being the death of the firstborn. And I think pollen was in one of those plagues as well. The Israelites are spared this final plague when they are told to mark their homes with lamb's blood so that God will know to pass over their homes. And after this 10th plague, Pharaoh finally allows the Israelites to leave. However, soon after, Pharaoh has a change of heart, and he and his army pursue the Israelites. At the Sea of Reeds, God causes the waters to part for the Israelites to cross. and then God closes the waters over the pursuing Egyptian army. The Israelites are free, kind of. As they wander through the wilderness, the Israelites begin to question their situation. There's no steady food, there's no reliable water, and there's no real sense of what's going to happen next. They repeatedly asked Moses, "Why did you bring us here?" God does provide, sending food in the morning and in the evening, and water from rock. Eventually, the Israelites reach Mount Sinai, where God establishes a covenant with them and gives them the 10 Commandments. But then, while Moses is on the mountain receiving additional laws, the Israelites, grow anxious because Moses is late in returning. And so they ask Aaron to make a god they can see, and he fashions a golden calf. The people worship it in violation of the covenant they've made with God. And so when Moses eventually does descend from the mountain, he sees the people's idolatry, and he shatters the tablets, he destroys the calf, he confronts Aaron, and he calls the Israelites to account. The Exodus story is not just a story about liberation, but it's a story also about the difficulty of becoming free in the face of a comfortable and familiar, remembered past. And like much of the Bible, the messages contained in the story of Exodus continue to resonate with many of the challenges we face today. Its relevance is both religious, social, political, and personal. And I believe this is true whether you believe the Bible is the result of divine inspiration or just stories created and told by mortals. Exodus is the story of an oppressed people seeking freedom. Pharaoh is a symbol of the power of those who resist change. Today, the story of the enslaved Israelites is echoed by movements for racial and gender equity, immigrants leaving dangerous conditions for unknown futures, and workers organizing against mistreatment and exploitation. Like Moses, today's would-be leaders in the fight for liberation are not always perfect. In the story of Exodus, Moses is reluctant, uncertain, and often overwhelmed. He must confront not only Pharaoh, but the resistance and fear of his own people. One aspect of the Exodus story that particularly resonates with me is the Israelites' resistance to their newfound freedom. When the Israelites reach the sea and see the Egyptian army approaching, they panic, crying out, "It would have been better to remain enslaved than to die in the wilderness." And once they cross the sea, they continue to complain. The Israelites long for the certainty of Egypt, notwithstanding how they had suffered. And they resort to the familiar, building the golden calf when the future seems particularly unclear. Today, people often cling to what is familiar, even when it might be personally harmful, because of the uncertainty that comes with change. Like the Israelites, we are confronted by a loss of structure, a lack of control, and anxiety about our future. But being open to change requires trust, adaptation, and patience. Just as in the Exodus story, when we have made a change, we often experience the feeling of being in the wilderness. It may not be a physical space as it was for the Israelites, but it is certainly a time of uncertainty, ambiguity, anxiety, and ultimately transformation. Exodus is also an immigrant story. It teaches us about some of the forces that drive people to leave their established homes and some of the questions and challenges that they face on their way to the future. These include fundamental issues of identity and belonging. Exodus reminds us that there is a story of immigration in all of our ancestral pasts. One of the central themes in the Exodus story is the challenge of trusting a future we can't fully predict. Do we leave a job? Do we leave a relationship? Do we set aside an identity that no longer serves us? Do we take risks for a better but uncertain future? There is a tension between fear and hope in the Exodus story that echoes in our lives today. The Exodus story is about making a change from something that's comfortable but confining to something that's scary but holds the possibility of all sorts of positive changes. The Hebrew word for Egypt is Mitzrayim. Mitzrayim is derived from the root word meaning to be narrow or to be confined. So the story of leaving Egypt is the story of leaving a narrow place. I invite you to think for a moment of what a narrow place may be for you. Perhaps it's a job you don't like, a relationship that is no longer nourishing, a minister you've grown weary of. Just kidding. Maybe your narrow place is an expectation that you've placed on yourself or someone else has placed on you. Maybe it's a bad habit you've been holding on to. Or maybe it's something more trivial, but something that still takes up physical or mental space that you'd like to reclaim. The Exodus story teaches us about the difficulty of escaping the narrow space. For the Israelites, their initial obstacles were first, Moses' reluctance to approach the Pharaoh, and second, the Pharaoh's unwillingness to let them go. Then once the Israelites leave Egypt, there are multiple points in the story where they have regrets about what they've left behind and concern about what the future holds. So what are some of the things that keep us all stuck in our own Egypt? It could just be a habit, but as many of us know, habits can be very difficult to break. For many of us, it can be a fear of change. There's the saying that the devil you know is better than the devil you don't know. We may be in a situation we're struggling with, be it a bad job or a bad relationship, but the fear is that making a change may lead to something worse. Sometimes the challenge can come from people around us telling us that we deserve our suffering, that we can't hope for anything better. And sometimes, unfortunately, those voices may be coming from our own heads. So how do we move forward from the narrow places, from our own private Mitzrayim, move forward out of Egypt? For the Israelites, ultimately, the situation was so perilous that they couldn't help but make a change. For me, making a change requires two things: being willing to take a risk and being willing to accept uncertainty. Perhaps the most important thing is having a supportive community. Finding people who build you up rather than tear you down. And I think we're fortunate that we are part of this community where it's easy to find people like that. We have clergy, we have trained people who have taken on that responsibility, but in my experience, the people you meet at social hour, at Wednesday night dinner, at a chalice circle, a work day, at Soul Collage, and many other places are all ready and willing to be a part of that supportive community. Unlike the Israelites who left Egypt with little clue of what lay ahead, we can plan and research in advance. And some of the questions I ask myself: what's the worst that can happen? What's the fallback position? What can I do to increase the likelihood of success? Am I prepared to take on this change at this particular time? What do I need to do to prepare to be successful? And what would a better future look like? As you think about these questions, sometimes it can help to write down your thoughts. Of course, sometimes making changes requires you to be willing to accept failure. Unfortunately, in our society, we tend to focus on success, but the truth for me is that failure is an important part of life. I'd suggest that if you never let yourself fail at something, you may not be taking enough chances, and you may be missing out on opportunities. Sometimes making a big change can be very difficult. It may help to break it into smaller steps. You might be the kind of person who dives into the swimming pool, and you might be the kind of person who gingerly steps in. I'm the second. But either way, it's likely that you're going to end up in the same place. Be intentional about making change. Circle the date in your calendar. Write down what you're leaving behind. Share your plans with others. Sometimes it can be easier to make a change if you think about it as something temporary rather than permanent. That's not always possible, but when it is, it can seem like a safer way. So commit to making a change for 30 days and then reevaluate it. And of course, consider how you can enlist support from family and friends and the community. As scary as it might have been for the Israelites to leave Egypt, I'm sure that being part of a large group made it easier. So see if there's a group of people wanting to make the same change that you do. Or tell someone that you know what your plan is and arrange to discuss it at regular intervals. Now, the first step to change is often internal rather than external. Before the Israelites could leave Egypt, they needed to stop thinking of themselves as slaves and start thinking of themselves as free people who had been enslaved. So think of yourself as what you want to be, and don't be constrained by defining yourself as what you don't want to be. Most change comes with some discomfort, a period of metaphorical wandering in the wilderness. So keep your eye on the end destination, but also try and recognize and try to process every step along the way. Understand that what might feel like a failure may just be a small bump in the journey. Consider the risk of not making change. Ask yourself what you will regret more in 5 years, trying and failing or not trying at all. Rather than asking, what if this goes wrong, ask yourself what you might learn if you try. And finally, keep in mind that as much as we tend to be goal-oriented, sometimes the best part of change is the journey rather than the destination. So it occurs to me that as a congregation, we're about to embark on our own Exodus-like journey. I'm not trying to suggest that our current minister has oppressed us. I'll leave that to the rest of the staff. But next Sunday, the search team will be announcing their selection for UUFR's next lead minister. Perhaps that's the moment that we cross the sea of reeds. Although hopefully Reverend James will not be chasing after us. Then we'll enter a wilderness of uncertainty. If you're like me, the first thing you'll do is turn to your favorite search engine to find out everything you can about the candidate. Then later this month, we'll all receive some manna, some food, as we get a chance to meet and interact with the candidate in person. And finally, sometime in August or September, we'll have our Mount Sinai moment when we hear our new minister lead the Sunday service for the first time. Perhaps as we go through this process, some of what I've said this morning will help. So in closing, I invite you to consider these questions. Where in your life are you stuck? What is your Mitzrayim or narrow place? What and who is holding you back? What would it look like to be unstuck? What resources do you have to get unstuck? And who can you call on to help? And finally, to quote Yul Brynner as Pharaoh in the classic movie, The Ten Commandments, "So it is written, so it shall be done." Thank you.
I am shorter, so let me get taller for just a second. Aha! Our closing hymn this morning will be hymn number 1020 in the Teal hymnal, Wo Ya Ya by the Ghanaian band Osibisa.
We are going, heaven knows where we are going, but we know within. And we will get there, heaven knows how we will get there, but we know we will. It will be hard, we know, and the road will be muddy and rough, but we'll get there. Heaven knows how we will get there, but we know we will. Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. We are going. Heaven knows where we are going, but we know within. And we will get there. Heaven knows how we will get there, but we know we will. Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
And this time of worship together this morning, I'd like to share with you some words from Deborah Hoffner. We are on a journey. We didn't plan it. We didn't have time for the bread to rise. We may find ourselves in the wilderness, hungry, thirsty, doubting that we should ever have come. But look around. We are not alone. It is our journey together, a journey to our better selves, a journey to a better world, a journey to a more promised land. As we journey on, may we do so with ever more love for one another, with ever more gratitude for the precious gift of life we share this very day, and with ever more peace in our hearts and hope for our own lives and this world we share. Amen.